Okay, again, an area of similarity between Ireland and Kenya is that we had big families.
Okay.
So I came from a family of 8 children,
Alright.
and at that, so I have 4 boys and 4 girls. So started off my career. I was in West Africa. I did a science degree, and I was teaching there, and I taught with some Irish people, the Spiritans who were working there. Then I came back and I decided I wanted to do medicine.
Oh.
So I became a doctor. I studied in Trinity College in Dublin.
Okay.
So I'm a medical doctor, and I did some postgraduate training in Ireland as a doctor. I worked in emergency medicine. I worked in obstetrics, in pediatrics, in infectious diseases for a number of years.
Yeah.
Then I went to Uganda. I got married. My wife and myself went to Uganda. So I worked as a medical director in a hospital in Rakai in the south of Uganda in the mid-1990s, when HIV was at its height, and when there was no such thing as antiretrovirals. We had a really, really busy time there. We were the only hospital in the district of over 400,000 people. So basically it was almost a 24-hour job. Very distressing, because a lot of young people were getting ill. There was little you could do for them apart from maybe blood transfusions or providing some palliative care, because there was no effective treatment that worked. Many people died at that time. I also worked in Uganda at the time of the Rwandan genocide, and was involved in the operation in Uganda when the bodies from the victims of the genocide came into Lake Victoria. And I was involved in the public health measures around that to try and really that was a terrible, terrible time. I still have visions in my head of working with other public health officials, going down to the shores of Lake Victoria and seeing mounds of bodies that had been taken from the water, which then we had to bury to prevent disease and so on from spreading. It's less of a push than something that actually happened in my life. I was always interested in international development in different forms of assistance. Again, starting off my life as a volunteer, I worked for 4 years as a volunteer in Africa, so I was always interested in that. My reason for entering medicine was very much linked to that broader interest in development. And that brought me on a path away from clinical medicine, where I was involved delivering babies and looking after people, infectious diseases and so on, into a more policy engagement internationally. And I suppose you could describe that as health diplomacy, international health diplomacy. After my period in Uganda, I got a job in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs in Ireland to work as their public health representative and to work globally around developing Ireland's support for public health, for working with WHO, for UNICEF. I was involved in setting up the Global Fund for AIDS, TB and Malaria that Ireland made huge contributions to for many years. We put money into supporting the development of an AIDS HIV vaccine. So it was actually a very interesting time. And after that I was promoted in my own job, and I spent some time working on the aid side in our ministry. Then I was transferred to Malawi. We set up a new embassy in Malawi in 2007. Had 4 wonderful years there, really. Again, very, very fulfilling time, interesting time, different challenges in that country, but also wonderful people there. We made some very good friendships there as well. So after that, I spent 3 years in Ireland. Again, back in my ministry, I was director of policy for our international aid program. And then when they said they're opening up the embassy in Kenya, My ears pricked up, and I eventually got the tap on the shoulder to ask me, would you be interested in coming? And of course, I didn't need to be asked a second time. So I never planned it this way. And I think if you ask many people, what their view of where they wanted to be when they were 21 years of age and where they ended up when they were 50 or 55 years of age, sometimes, people say, I never thought. And for me, it's been a very interesting journey. It's been a very fulfilling journey. I think it's a very important role. It's a very privileged role to be in. But I think one of the great things is that you are representing your government, your country. It's a great privilege to do that, but there's also a huge responsibility to do that to the best of your ability. I am. My two children laugh at me and they say, Dad, what do you know about social media? But in fact, professionally, we are asked to have a Twitter account for as an ambassador. We also have a Twitter account from our embassy, so we're quite active in that. We've been using that to publicise the greening of Ahmed. Yes, I use Facebook, and my wife tells me I'm using it too much, but I actually find it very useful. Haven't started on Instagram yet. I think that's a challenge for me.
All right, sure.
I have two children. They're twins, two girls. They're aged 21. They were with us. They were born during the time we were in Uganda in the mid-1990s. So the first year of their life was spent in Africa. We then moved to Ireland for 12 years. But I was always travelling over and back, and we were always so. They grew up with very much with the notion that we as a family were very outward focused by necessity. And my wife is a teacher. Rona was a teacher in Dublin, so she was much more rooted with the children while I was travelling a little bit. They came with us to Malawi, so they spent 4 years there. So they did all of their primary school in Ireland through Irish language. Okay, so all of their lessons were through Irish language. So then for their secondary school, they spent the first 4 years of that in Malawi in an international school there. They hated it at the beginning. They told me I was ruining their life and why did I do this? Where are their friends? But after 6 months, they never wanted to move from that place again.
Everything changed.
Everything changed. They got to love the country, the people. The education system was very good there, and they learned a lot. And you asked me earlier on, when you look back, what do you want to have achieved? And to me, having given my children that experience of the richness of what they've learned, of having lived in Africa for 4 years, and having that be a very positive experience. And their friends, they don't judge anybody by the colour of their skin. They've met people from so many different nationalities. And to me, that's as rich as you ever want to be, is to be able to hand on a legacy to your children that they will have forever. And again, through Facebook and social media, they're still in contact with their friends from that time. They've been out to us several times, to Kenya already. They sometimes get jealous of the fact that we're here and they're back in Ireland, but they're finishing they're in the middle of their university degrees in Ireland at the moment. They're both, I have no doubt, that they will have an interest in travelling overseas, and so it's up to them what they want to decide to do eventually. I can't say yes because my wife would tell me I'm telling lies. So, but I do cook some things, and I there's nothing I like more as a weekend to sit down over a barbecue, sit down and just with friends and share that. There's an Irish bread that we call brown bread, which is like a wholemeal bread. It's actually quite nutritious, so I like to make that. And there's some fish dishes. Both of us like fish a lot, so when we go down to the coast, to be able to, I like to catch fish too, so to be able to cook that when you come back. But don't ask me to do anything too complicated.
Our Kenyan food, which one do you eat? Which one do you like?
Oh, it has to be Nyama Choma, of course.
Nyama Choma?
When you're having a Tusker and a Nyama Choma, what else do you want? I swim every morning. I like to get in at about 6 a.m, go for a swim for about 20 minutes. And I walk. We have dogs here. We go for a walk. One of my passions is photography. I like to take pictures. I read. Of course, I have to read a lot for my work, but I like to read then as a form of leisure. I used to do a lot of running. I ran a few marathons. I wouldn't be able to catch up with David Jadisha now or anything like that, but I used to do a lot of that, so I like to stay quite fit. When I was in Ireland, I used to cycle to work every day. I did that for a long time. I haven't done any hill walking or mountain walking yet. I was planning a few days ago with friends that we'll do Longana over the next few weeks, and just go over there in a day trip, maybe on a Sunday, and maybe start doing a few other places like that. But I mean, it's so fantastic to be here and to have those resources nearby, so I'm looking forward to that too. I can. In fact, my wife, I first knew my wife's brother, who is a very good friend of mine, who still is, and I think it's probably not a dissimilar story for many people. That's how they get introduced. So he invited me to a party, and I had met her there, and of course we never met for years and years and years, and then we bumped into each other in Dublin a number of years after that, and I had just qualified as a doctor in Dublin, and so we started seeing each other. So we were married 2 years later. We both took our time in getting married. I think both of our parents were wondering, was it ever going to happen? So it did, and we've been together now for almost 25 years. And she also had worked overseas before we met, so she worked in West Africa. She also has been very interested in working in international development, so I think it's for some couples, particularly in the diplomatic service, that it can cause tensions if one person is working at home and then suddenly, that they have to leave because the other person has got a posting, or if they're not particularly interested in going to a country where they've been posted. Fortunately, that hasn't been a problem for us. When you speak to me next year, I promise you we'll have our first conversation in Swahili. Asante sana.